NT courtroom. A heavy silence hangs in the air, the kind that suffocates, the kind that makes people second-guess their own breathing. Close on the polished wooden gavel resting near the judge's fingers. It hasn't struck yet, but the room feels like a verdict has already been decided. The fluorescent lights hum, cold, clinical. Rows of people sit still, their eyes locked on the defendant. A teenager, no more than 17, sits at the defendant's table. He's not slouched, not fidgeting, not sweating. He's still, too still. His hands rest lightly on the table, controlled, measured. His expression unreadable, but there's something behind his eyes, something calculated. Across from him, the judge, late 50s, stern, deep-set eyes that have seen too many cases to care. His lips curl just slightly, an almost imperceptible smirk. Judge inhales, slow, deliberate. Well, I suppose we can wrap this up. The lawyer beside the teen shifts uncomfortably. He leans in, whispering something, but the teen doesn't react. The judge exhales through his nose, taps his finger against his bench, the faintest hint of satisfaction in his face. Judge, conted, dismissed. A finality to the word, a gavel raised. The teenager, for the first time, moves. Slowly, deliberately, he tilts his head, eyes narrowing, like he's just decided something. A beat. Then he speaks. Teenager, exhaling, barely above a whisper. You sure about that, Your Honor? Hard cut to black. Fade in, int. Courtroom, continuous. The judge freezes, gavel hovering mid-air. His smirk twitches, just barely. Judge excels sharply. Excuse me? The teenager leans back slightly in his chair, eyes locked onto the judge with an eerie calmness. He doesn't blink, doesn't flinch. Teenager. I asked if you were sure about that. The room shifts. It's subtle. A faint murmur from the back, a side glance between attorneys. Even the bailiff, standing stiff by the door, furrows his brow. The judge lets out a dry chuckle, shakes his head. Judge. Oh, I see. You think you're clever. He flips through a stack of papers, barely glancing at them. A deliberate display of disinterest. Judge, conted. Listen, son. The law is not some high school debate team. You got your ruling. Now be smart, take it, and leave. The teenager doesn't move. Teenager. Smart. Beat. That's an interesting word. The judge's jaw tightens, just a fraction. Judge. Chuckling again, but forced. Oh, this is rich. Kid, do you even understand where you're sitting? He gestures around, leaning forward like a king on his throne. Judge. I've been on this bench for 20 years. I've seen every trick, every argument. You're just another case file, and now you're dismissed. The gavel slams down, but the teenager's eyes glint, like he just watched the judge make a fatal mistake. Teenager. Oh, I understand exactly where I'm sitting, Your Honor. A beat, heavy, charged. Even the judge feels it now. Something is off. The courtroom holds its breath. The judge, still gripping his gavel, narrows his eyes. Judge, flat, dismissive. Is that so? And where do you think you're sitting? The teenager exhales slowly, tilting his head, studying the man in front of him like a puzzle he's just solved. Teenager. I'm sitting in a courtroom where the law is supposed to matter. Beat. But does it? A faint shift in the air, small but undeniable. The judge leans back, forcing another smirk, but it's tighter now, strained at the edges. Judge, half chuckling. Cute. You kids watch too much TV. Let me spell it out for you. You lost. Walk out that door and get on with your life. A few people in the gallery glance at each other. Even the prosecutor's pen has stopped moving. Something doesn't feel right. The teenager slowly drums his fingers against the table. Rhythmic, deliberate. Teenager. If I lost, why are you nervous? The judge stiffens for half a second. It's barely there, but the teenager catches it. His lips curl. just the faintest hint of a smirk. The judge exhales through his nose, flipping through his papers again. But his hands, they aren't quite as steady as before. Judge scoffs. You think throwing around big words and a smug attitude is going to change anything? The teenager leans in slightly, not aggressive, calculated. Teenager number. But the truth might. A murmur ripples through the room. The tension is a live wire now, sparking. The judge's fingers curl into a fist. For the first time, he looks unsure. The courtroom is dead silent. The judge glares, but there's a flicker of something else now. Something he's trying to suppress. The teenager exhales, slow and deliberate. Then, he slides a single folded paper across the table. Teenager. Would you like to read it out loud, Your Honor? Or should I? The judge doesn't move. His eyes flick to the paper. His fingers hesitate. Teenager. Soft but sharp. Go on. A beat. Too long. Then with stiff hands, the judge picks up the paper, unfolds it. His face drains of color. The prosecutor, Leah. Judge. Low, almost breathless. Where? Did you get this? The teenager finally smiles. Teenager. That doesn't matter. What matters is everyone in this room sees it now. The judge's hands tremble. The paper crinkles. His smugness is gone. The silence crushes the room. Then, the sound of a pen dropping. Someone in the gallery whispers, "Is that his signature?" The judge swallows. His lips part, but no words come out. The judge's breath is shallow. His fingers twitch against the paper. The courtroom is no longer his. Murmurs swell into whispers, whispers into gasps. The prosecutor's jaw clenches. The bailiff takes an unconscious step closer, like a reflex before a disaster. The teenager doesn't move, doesn't gloat, just watches. Teenager, low, almost amused. You should have been more careful. The judge finally speaks, but his voice is cracked, stripped of its usual confidence. Judge. This is... His sentence fragments, falling apart before it reaches the end. The prosecutor stands. Prosecutor. Your Honor, I believe we need to discuss this. Immediately. The judge swallows hard. He knows. There's no discussion. No escape. The courtroom erupts. Reporters scribble furiously. The gallery surges with voices. The judge grips the bench like it's the only thing keeping him upright. The teenager finally stands, calm, unshaken. He adjusts his jacket, smooths a wrinkle. Then he turns to the judge, looks him dead in the eye. Teenager, chuckling, light, dismissed. Mic drop. The judge's world collapses around him, fade to black.